Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're back with our monthly sponsored video from Plex, where we look at the Plex media server and all the different things that you can do with it. And one of the questions I've been getting from a lot of people lately is what makes a good Plex server? What should I be looking for? And a lot of folks have been looking for maybe something convenient like a network attached storage device to act as the Plex server. And in the past, there wasn't many options to have a good Plex server experience running on a NAS device because these devices weren't doing the video transcoding all that well. But there have been some software updates to the Plex media serving software, and now there are more NAS options to choose from. And in this instance, we're going to be looking at a Synology NAS here. And of course, from some of our previous videos, we were running it successfully on a WD MyCloud PR2100. So there are more options now. I'm going to talk about what's working here, how you might be able to check your own hardware to see if it works, and make some other recommendations as well in this review. Now, I do want to mention, in the interest of full disclosure, this is a paid sponsorship from Plex. However, they are not reviewing this content before it is posted, and all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. We're also going to be talking about Synology today, and they are a past sponsor on the channel, but are not sponsoring this particular video. And this drive here is on a long-term loan from Synology because I do look at different features of this NAS from time to time. So let's get into it now and look at how hardware transcoding is working on more NAS platforms. So right now we've got this Synology DS216+2 NAS streaming two transcoded videos to these two mobile devices right now, an iPad and an iPhone. And what's happening here in real time is that the NAS is making these videos smaller so that we can play them back on these mobile devices more efficiently. And what it's doing is converting a Blu-ray MKV file, which is a high-def, high-bitrate video, into right now 1080p on both devices at around 12 megabits per second or so. So it's doing a lot to crunch down this video right now, and that's one of the key features of Plex, that you can leave the house and stream your media to your devices while you're away. And if you have a couple of people doing that, if you don't have the hardware transcoding built in to speed up that process, you won't have a good experience, but we're seeing it actually working pretty well on here right now. And we're going to switch over to my control panel so you can see exactly what's going on here. So right now my iPhone is playing back the movie. You can see that it's transcoding it, and because it's got this HW here, it means that Plex is using the hardware features of this NAS to do it. The other movie here is also getting transcoded via hardware. Now, the compatibility on this is limited right now to Intel processors that support the Quick Sync feature, and I've got a link that you can find in the video description that will take you to this table. And this is every Intel processor that supports the Quick Sync transcoding. And if your processor is on here, it should, and I quote very importantly here, should work with your particular device. But there are some NAS devices that might have a compatible processor but don't have a current version of Plex available to take advantage of that. A great example is that TerraMaster NAS we looked at a few weeks ago. It has a QuickSync compatible processor, but the version of Plex that they were offering was not up to date. In fact, what I do recommend you do is download your Plex application for your NAS directly from the Plex website by going over to the downloads directory here, clicking on download, and choosing your NAS platform. Many NAS platforms allow you to download directly. So for example, if I go over to the Synology NAS here, I can choose my package, like Intel 64-bit is the one you want. That will now download directly onto my computer here, and then I can install it through the Synology control panel. What I found with TerraMaster was that I couldn't download the TerraMaster package from Plex. I had to go through the little web store that TerraMaster set up, and because its version of Plex wasn't up to date, I wasn't getting the hardware transcoding working. So my advice would be, once you find out that your NAS has the right processor, go on the Plex forums and ask around or look around to see if other people are talking about that NAS, and you'll have a good idea as to whether or not that NAS will be the way to go. Again, I had to install this manually here to get it working. But when it is working, as you can see here, our CPU load here is about 40% right now. despite the fact that we're actively transcoding 2 movies in real time. This NAS only has a gigabyte of RAM by default as well, so that makes it even more credible here that we've got this hardware transcoding working efficiently on this particular NAS device. And again, this will give people more options for choosing their particular Plex server. Now, this feature, though, is limited to Intel processors. So when you're shopping for a NAS device, you'll want to make sure that it has an Intel chip inside for this to work. There are many low-cost NAS devices that are running with ARM processors that are not going to be compatible with Plex hardware transcoding. Many NAS makers like Synology and QNAP and others have their own media serving software that does support hardware transcoding on those other processors, but they will not work with Plex. So you definitely need to look for an Intel QuickSync compatible processor and maybe do a little bit of homework on the Plex forums to make sure that your exact model is going to work. Now, this one is running with an N3060 processor. Again, only a gigabyte of RAM right now installed on it, and it seems to be working just fine, as you can see here. There are newer models of the Synology Intel-based devices available now. So the two that I would recommend that are kind of lower in cost are the 718 Plus. That one has a quad-core Apollo Lake chip, a generation up from this one. So the Apollo Lake ones might do better with H.265 video. The 718 Plus costs $399. The 218 Plus is $299. Looks pretty much the same as what you see here physically. That one has a dual-core processor. So you can get in the door with a Synology NAS for $299. You got to put some drives in them, of course, but you can get up and running perhaps for a little bit less than what we saw with that WD drive we were looking at in prior videos. So not bad on that front. Now, this feature, though, will also work with Intel-based computers. So if you have a low-end Apollo Lake little mini PC like a NUC or something, you can enable now with the current version of Plex Media Server this hardware transcoding feature. Let me show you how to do that real quick. So what you want to do is go into your settings menu, click over to Transcoder, and you'll see that there isn't much to see here at the moment because you have to enable the advanced function here. They do hide this thing a bit. And you want to check on use hardware acceleration when available. You'll need to save the changes, and then you've got to restart your Plex Media Server for hardware transcoding to work. So sometimes you might have to reboot your device, but if you're on Windows or something, you can just shut down the Plex Media Server and load it back up again. Once you do that, hardware accelerated transcoding will now be enabled, and you'll get the performance that we're currently seeing here on screen. Pretty easy to do, and I do think it opens up a lot of possibilities now that if you've got a $200 Apollo Lake-based Intel PC kicking around, you can attach some storage to it and turn it into a pretty good Plex Media Server, because those little NUCs have the same processors we often find on some of these devices here. But do remember, it needs to be an Intel-based machine. Now, I did want to show you a couple of things on the Synology control panel to think about when you are installing the Plex Media Server manually. Now, you can get Plex Media Server through their package center without really having to jump through any hoops, but I found that the version they offer on the store is sometimes a version or two behind whatever the current one is. Plex pushes out versions much more quickly than you might see updated in the package center. So that's why I suggested at the outset going and downloading that package manually. Once you have it downloaded, if you go into the package center and go over here to manual install, click browse and just go over to your downloads folder where that package was downloaded to, click open, and that will get the package installed automatically for you, and it will function just like it would if you installed it directly through the package center. But there was one other thing I wanted to point you at when you are setting this up, and that is in the control panel applet here. If you go over to shared folder and you go to the volume that you wish to share with Plex here, you want to get the permissions set up properly. So you see here I created a Plex folder for Plex to use, but you also need to give permissions to the Plex app for it to use that. It's going to create this user called Plex automatically. And what you want to do is just grant it read-write access so that it can put files on there and read them for you to use with your media devices. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to put anything on there or access it. So just setting that permission will get you ready to go so that when you pop into Plex, it will find all the media that you put in those folders there. So it's great to see there are more options now for NAS devices to run a fully functional Plex server that can do real-time hardware transcoding. I'm actually pleased by how well it's running here with a limited amount of RAM. We're about 60% utilized right now on the RAM, but it's still pretty remarkable that we're able to have it work as a NAS and be able to have 2 movies here transcoding in real time. So it's definitely working. You will need an Intel-based NAS, which will drive up your initial cost a little bit, but it's good to see now that there's more choices beyond just a WD drive to get this working. Some other folks have written in about using an Nvidia Shield as a server. It will certainly work as a server, but I'm finding the Shields get a lot of other things going on with them, as far as maybe somebody watching media on it at the same time it's trying to serve up some media. And my preference here in the house has been to go with a dedicated device. And I've been running now a NAS for my full media server, including the Plex thing here, along with a couple of other things. And I think I'm almost a year into this now, maybe 8 months, and I have not had a single issue with it. They don't consume a lot of power. They're kind of single-purpose devices. It just sits in the corner and just runs. We've never had to reboot it. And I think really running off a NAS device like this, if you are looking for an in-home Plex server, is probably the best way to go. And now you've got some more choices. Let's have some discussions, though, down in the comment section. And we'll probably do some follow-ups to this as things develop. This is Lon Seibin. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold-level supporters of the Black Eyed and Blues Music Hour podcast: Chris Allegretta, Gerard Newberg, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.